All righty. I wanted to go through a couple things to clarify a little bit today, and then talk more about um, just because there's been just a little bit of confusion. Most everybody understands what I was trying to communicate with the assignment descriptions, but I wanted to clarify a couple things so we could move on or move forward. And I'm sorry, I'm scowling not because I'm angry, but I'm trying to see my screen. I'm have a bunch of things open. All right. One of the things, hello, Samantha, Andy, Nicole, and Emily. Thank you very much for coming today.
Absolutely.
And I want everybody who watches the recording of this, don't feel um, like you're second class or anything like that. Absolutely not. It makes it so much easier to have more than one other person on the phone call, on the Teams meeting for me. Everybody gets the attendance points, whether or not you show up live. I have seen that there's a greater propensity for the people that show up live to stay with the course material, but everybody can get an A regardless, one way or another. Anyway, the couple things that I wanted to talk about is one is, have all of you here, have you guys retrieved your kits and your books? Have you gotten your kits and your books?
Yes.
Okay. Andy, have you been able to get your kit and book?
Yeah, I've been able to get it.
Okay, excellent. Um, that is really good moving forward. You are not restricted to or limited to the things in your kits. Um, I would recommend very highly that you add to it, but the kit gives you a really good selection of materials to start with. Probably the most important things in that kit are the block of foam for your carving and the goo mixture for your paper mache. And both of those things are going to be, you're going to start working on those in about a month and a half, 2 months, something like that. But that's a big reason you have the kit. And then also in your kit are tools and other things to work with. Your wire is probably the most immediately important thing, because the wire in the kit, you'll be using that starting probably the end of next week. So, but you can use the cardboard. Have you guys already started building your houses and everything? Because that's something else I wanted to talk about today.
I
Hey,
have.
Dell. Dell, have you been able to retrieve your kit and your book?
Yes.
All right, excellent. I know that a couple people have had a hard time getting their books, and I did extend the date on the quiz so that for those people. But I wanted to iterate again. Want to make everybody. I wanted to make sure, absolutely sure, that everybody understands. If we need to change due dates, we can change due dates. If we don't change due dates, that's fine. If I give you a 0 on anything, all that does is Canvas lets you know you got a 0, so you can go circle back and make sure you turn it in. Sometimes things slip through the cracks. Sometimes things aren't done. But make sure that as best you can, you stay on top of your assignments. But I'm totally flexible. It's not that big of a deal. The biggest thing that I would double check though is every couple of weeks, try to make sure that you get as many of the things that are due in as you possibly can. And so again, anytime you see a 0 or anything less than a perfect grade, you can always resubmit or submit and to get the points. Does everybody here understand that? All right. Excellent. We do have a couple people that were on the wait list that joined the class late. Um, you guys will start seeing 0s in the assignments that haven't been turned in. That is just so that Canvas can remind you to get those done. Again, just do the best you can, and let me know as you get those things turned in. if you don't see me changing the grade right away. I will change as soon as I see the stuff, like every day I'm checking on the grades. If you have resubmitted, submitted, or updated things and you don't see that I've changed the grade, please email me and let me know. Canvas is pretty good about letting me know when things are turned in, but that doesn't seem to be completely effective when it deals with like discussion elements and stuff like that. I have one thing that is good is a couple people didn't get perfect scores on the quiz. They turned around, reworked them right away, and turned them in again, and everything was great. All right. Again, I'm scowling. It's not because of you. I'm just trying to concentrate on what I had set up to do. Okay. One thing another thing I wanted to talk about is the artist research and service learning options. I want to go over that really good right now. And I'm hoping that this is a big enough selection of people that you guys can ask me plenty of questions so that we can get that clarified for people. Okay, so what I'm talking about is, and we'll circle back to this right here and talk a lot about that in just a moment, but I want to talk about this. This module 7A, you have a research option, and most of this is geared towards research, but you also have a service learning option if you choose to do that. And the reason they're both kind of on the same thing is that everybody needs to do a little bit of artist research in this class. You have the artist list, and then on each of the modules, you have a background list where you learn about different artists, and then you do an artist review, which is like a 3 or 4 paragraph essay about these artists here. Again, I want to make sure everybody understands each module's artist review is only on the artists in that background list. And in that background list, there's like 5 to 7 artists that are talked about, and there's videos on each one. If any of those videos, any of the links don't take you anywhere, please let me know, and I'll, as fast as I can, I will get those links changed out. But again, the artist review for module 1 only deals with artists in the background portion of module 1. And that same is true for all the other modules. Does that make sense to everybody on that? Okay. So everybody does that, but what you'll see the module 7.A, and then down here there's 7.B, 7.C, and 7.D later on. These refer specifically to research projects or service learning projects that you do throughout the course of the term. So far, a few people have told me that they want to do either artist research or service learning, and that's not due right now. That's due on Sunday, but I want to go through this whole module so that you kind of understand what's going on. For the artist research, this is an exercise I want people to go through where they kind of list their own self-identifying traits, but you will never turn that into me or anybody else. Notice here it says this list is not turned in. But that's what I want you to do to just get this the wheels turning in the process of either considering your own values that you can bring to the table when you do service learning, or things to be aware of when you select your artist to do your artist research. Again, I'm talking about 2 different things at the same time: artist research and service learning. Okay. Again, you will not be required to do both, either the artist research or the service learning, not both. The service learning is the phrase that UVU has selected to use for community service. I like that service learning, because the service learning project is something that you design yourself, but is specifically there for you to take advantage of those self-identifying traits, your talents that you have, where you fit in, and your experience in the art world. That's where you use. And for the artist research, the reason why it's important to be aware of those traits is that I want that to kind of help inform the research that you do on the artist that you select. What makes that artist distinct and different from you? What makes them stand out? What makes their art resonate with you, even though that they are different? Again, that list of identifiers will not ever be turned in. I will not see it. So read through that section of this module 7.A. And now we get to this part right here, this artist list. Everybody in the class needs to do that. I have a list of 75 artists here. And it used to be that you had to go through each and every artist on the list, but we decided that that was aging people far too quickly. What you need to do is follow the directions and pick 12 of these artists. And what you're basically doing is putting their name into a search engine, adding the word art or artist, and then picking one of the images that comes up with their work, and just then basically you describe it in 5 to 7 words. And that's essentially all you're doing. So you pick one artist from this list of 5, one artist from this list of 6, one artist from this list of 5, etc., all the way down. So you have 6 artists, and then you pick 6 more artists from this list of the artists who are good to know. All right? Again, everybody, whether you're doing service learning or artist research, needs to do that with the artist list. This is designed specifically so that you can become familiar with what some of this stuff looks like that are produced by the artists that we look at during the class. And then I do want everybody to watch this video. First, do no harm, or actually look at that, read that, and then watch this video. Have any of you 6 seen that video? Oh, Callie, hey. The second disaster. What's that?
I saw it.
Okay.
I'm only speaking.
What was the thing that really opened your eyes when you saw that video?
It's about how when disasters occur, people send all sorts of donations without giving any sort of thought to what is actually being asked for by the people they're sending donations to. What stood out to me is that the surplus of unnecessary donations kind of seems to be to assuage the conscience of the givers rather than actually help people that they're giving to, and seems to be more for their benefit than the people that they're claiming to help. So when someone is seeking to actually contribute to a cause, it's important to, if you're going to actually help them, to hear what they are asking for.
Yeah, I think that's really important. Even if you're not, that's excellent summation. Thank you, Emily. Even if you're not directly involved with the service learning this semester, doesn't matter. At some point, your artist, you are going to be involved in this kind of community stuff at some point. You are either going to do it voluntarily, or somebody that you care about or feel sorry for is going to sucker you into it. But you are going to be involved at some point. And what I loved about that video is it just kind of stresses the fact that we need to communicate. We have something that we have to offer. We're artists, and there's not an awful lot of people in the world that take the risks that we do as artists. And so there is a tendency when you're offering to help somebody to decide that you know what they need, or to assume that you know what they need. And that is, sometimes I think that might be justified, but most of the time, I'm not going to say most of the time, all the time, there is a greater benefit when we pause for a moment and ask what the individual receiving the aid might need. putting aside the "I'm going to save you" superhero complex, that isn't necessarily a bad thing, but putting that aside long enough to communicate and find out how can I actually help you with what you actually need to be helped with. And I'll give you a couple examples of what service learning people have done in the past. And I'll give you a really bad example too. But way back in the 80s, which is prehistory for most of you, I was living in Alabama, and I was a volunteer minister of all things. But while I was there, in the place I was in, 5 tornadoes touched down. And driving through the city after that, the next morning, it was weird. It looked like right out of those old World War II carpet bomb movies, because there were things that were 5 and 6 story buildings were completely flattened. I remember going by one strip mall where the jeweler in the strip mall had saved about 15 people's lives because his safe in the jewelry store was big enough he could cram them all in, and they held the door shut until the tornadoes passed by. Then you drive by the strip mall. The only thing that was taller than 18 inches was that surviving safe that he had crammed everybody into. And it was I could not believe 15 people could fit in there, but they made it work. I mean, this thing was maybe 3 times bigger than a standard, TARDIS size phone booth. But and extra credit for anybody who understands that reference. But I remember when that happened, so many people around Alabama, neighboring states, church communities around the country donated food to help people out, food and water. Within a week and a half, more people had food poisoning from the food that was going bad than anybody would have believed, because there simply was not the resources to keep the fresh food palatable and safe, because there wasn't enough electricity coming to, there weren't enough surviving refrigerators and freezers. And a lot of that would have been resolved, they realized later, if the people on the ground in Huntsville had been able to coordinate with the people providing the food and say, hey, this is what we need, can you provide it in coolers? Or this is what we need so we can boil it, we need fresh water, that kind of a thing. And so that's the bad example. I'll give you a couple good examples of during COVID, there were several ma and pa restaurants that were dying because nobody was coming out to get the food. And it was just as people were starting to realize, oh yeah, we can make our food available for online orders and deliver it to folks. That's when they started doing that. But one of the students in this class was a painter, but she also was one of these skateboard influencers, and her channel was really, really popular. And so she went and approached this one restaurant and asked what she could do. And they said, hey, nobody knows that we're even here. We're dying. All our traffic was foot traffic. So what she did is contacted some of her skateboard sponsors and painted a logo and scene on a custom-made skateboard for this restaurant to hang over their counter. And suddenly everybody was on social media tweeting about this because they saw that with the skateboard sponsors and everything. And almost single-handedly, she was able to get enough people interested or to be aware of the restaurant that she basically saved the restaurant. About a year and a half ago, another one of the students he was taking the summer class, and one person after another group, all these groups were emailing him about his service learning project, and then they would stop. He would contact them for about 3 weeks, things were going good, and then they would just stop responding. Or they would say, oh no, we've moved on, we're doing something else. He came down to the last couple of weeks of the class and he said, I don't know what to do. I've already done all this effort and everything's fallen through. And I said, well, just start knocking on doors, see if anybody in your neighborhood can use some help. And there was a guy in the neighborhood who was a disabled vet who his yard was overgrown, and this guy also had chickens in his backyard. And what this art student did, the art student from UVU did, was get a bunch of people to volunteer to clean up the yard. And he used his art skills to build a sculptural chicken coop. So he basically, in the backyard, built a sculpture that also functioned as a chicken coop to meet the needs of this disabled vet. But I thought, so they very different ideas, but I thought that both of those ended up being really cool. And they were because you guys, the art student went out and found what the community needed. So but that's what the service learning option is. And so, and that second disaster film, I want everybody to watch it. So not so you feel bad, when you find out about the 6 bazillion teddy bears that folks delivered to like Sandy Hook Elementary. That wasn't a bad thing at all, but it is. I think it does drive home the idea that we need to be mindful of what people need. So this assignment right here is artist research or service learning. As soon as you decide what you want to do, your artist research needs to be an artist from this artist list of 75 artists. Pick one of those to work on. Or if you want to do the service learning, you can do that too. But you can't do both. So as soon as you let me know, I will take your name off the other list of assignments. So if you decide to do artist research, you will not be responsible for service learning. If you do service learning, you will not be responsible for any of these artist research option assignments. All right, is that clear for everybody? Okay, Samantha, you are the only person I'm seeing. Oh, okay, and Andy, you two are the only one responding, so that's good. Excellent. Okay, and I see a couple other people responding too. Excellent. All right, so for the artist research option, the first thing that you're going to do is post your selection of the artist and the things that some of their identifiers that stand out to you. And that's who you're going to use when you do your artist research projects. And it's basically an annotated bibliography and a PowerPoint, then an essay, an opinion essay on the artist. So those are the things that you're going to be doing. And if you do a service learning option, this encompasses a reflection and ideas, just to start the juices going in your head about what you can potentially do to provide service to somebody or some group in the area who needs it. It needs to be a project, or your service learning project needs to be something that you uniquely can do. So, it needs to be something that you come up with, an idea that you come up with the group that you're working with, that provides an opportunity for you to show your unique set of skills and experience. So things not to do are setting up chairs for a theater performance. That is not a good one. Volunteering at any sort of event where all you're doing is just standing around watching people, that doesn't count. Some of the things that do count are, like we talked about, somebody working with a local restaurant during COVID, for making a sculptural chicken coop for a disabled veteran in your community. Those were really good ideas. Some of the other things I've seen is people working as an art consultant at Slick to help people who are trying to find their way into opportunities to use their design skills in a professional setting, or to be a consultant with a community theater, designing sets and stuff like that. That's fine. I do want to make sure that though, if you are going to be doing service learning, make sure that you do not allow people to run over you and take advantage of you. Because scope creep is something that really happens. And art students, we're only really rude to ourselves. We're usually super nice to everybody else, which means that people have a tendency to feel they have permission to run over us. And I give an example of that. One person who worked with a community theater. Originally, she was just there to work on designing and building or directing the building of some of the stage sets. And they ended up conning her into, I think it was guilting her into making some more of the set pieces and some of the exterior decorations that they use to get people to come in. And she finally was able to put her foot down, and they gave her volunteers to help her with this. So it was a little bit more reasonable. But, stand up for yourself. If you do this, don't let people take advantage of you. And then you also notice that in each of the modules, there is this thing, an assignment work log. The work log needs to be turned in specifically detailing the work for that module. And I'm saying this because there's a work log right here for module 7.A. And this is only for module 7.A, that assignment. And the reason I say that is I have had students turn in work logs where they would turn in one work log, but it contained all the work for the semester. And that's not what we're doing. To give an example, I've given this example of it. Basically, you write down the days, approximate times, and the hours that you worked on these different elements of whatever the module is. And sometimes that's going to be over several different days. Sometimes it's going to be, you're going to be working on maybe several different times during the day. And this is not a hard and fast rule. It may look like on Tuesday, I spent 3 hours on this. On Wednesday, I spent 4.5 hours on this. On Thursday, I spent 15 minutes on it, and I did this and this. And then on Saturday, that's when I uploaded it and spent another hour on the discussion board. And that's fine. But however you do this, documenting the times that you spent, you do need to submit it with the total time for, if it's module 1, the total time you spent on module 1. Now, what you're not going to include in this one is the time you spent on module 7.A. So you're not going to include working on the artist list, and you're not going to include submitting your the time you took figuring out which artist you wanted to work on and submitting that name. All right. Does that make sense to people? The work log. This is something that is. Thank you very much. This is something that is mandated for me to require by the art department. And I asked when they first started doing it, we talked a bit about why. And one of the big whys was art students have a tendency not to value their own time. Have you guys ever seen that where you realize that you put a lot more effort into something than you gave yourself credit for? Have any of you had that experience? As you guys proceed forward with your professional career, a big part of the value that you offer is the time and experience you put into something. And your time is valuable because you're not just working that hour that you work to finish that project. What the client needs to understand is that hour represents the previous 15 years of your education and experience getting to that hour. An example of that is there is an apocryphal story. I don't know how true it is. I'm thinking it probably is true. Of this woman saw Picasso in the late 50s. She saw him just sitting down, chilling with his homies at a cafe, and she said, "Oh, this is exciting." And she came up and handed him a napkin and a pen and said, "Doodle something on this napkin, and I'll pay you whatever you want." So he looked at it for a sec, and then spent just a couple seconds, whip, and drawing on it, then handed it back and said, "That'll be $10,000." And she said, but you just spent like 30 seconds on it. How is that worth $10,000? And he said, but madame, I've actually spent the last 40 years of my life doing this. And that's what you're getting for $10,000. So you need to value your own time. And that's why we do the work logs. All right. So let's talk about, did everybody kind of understand the point to that story? Value your own time. Because if you don't value your own time, your customers are not going to value it either. And the only way that you're going to get to pay for your art supplies and eat and have a place to sleep that's not in a cardboard box under a bridge is if you value your time. So because it is valuable. How many people in the world can do exactly what you can do? Nobody. You're the only one. All right. So we talked about this a little bit. I'm thinking I want to go over this since most of you guys have your books and a lot of you have already turned in the quiz. I want to go over this really quickly and see if anybody has any questions on it. And then I want to talk about making the houses and stuff. Okay, now all this stuff is found in the chapters you're supposed to read, 1 and 2. So you can find all those answers there. And the quiz can take a half an hour to 45 minutes. It is all open book, so which is good. But again, if you miss any of the questions, what can you do about it? Are you just lost in the bottomless well of hopeless despair? Or can you do anything about it if you miss any points?
You can try again and resubmit it.
Yeah, exactly. And thank you, Nicole. I will always explain which ones are missing. And sometimes I'll just say the answer's in the text. And sometimes I'll say, hey, you need to be a lot more clear about this. Just go back through, fill in everything else the exact same, and then change the ones that need to be changed. Several of these, the true and false ones, are simple binary things, and you get graded on that immediately. And again, if you miss one, you can either retake the, it might show up right then. You can just wait until I grade it, and then you know which one to fix. Now, some of the ones that are graded by the computer, you may think you got right, and the computer will say you didn't get it right. And almost all the time when that happens, it's because of a misspelling. Like if there is, in a future quiz, it talks about complementary color schemes. If you misspell, or trompe-l'oeil, if you misspell that, the computer says it got it wrong. When I go back and see it, I'll know you misspelled it, and I change the score. Simple as that. Not a big deal. I do want to go over this really quick. I want to hear from a couple different people, just 2 or 3 different people. Why should an artist consider their audience? And I think the book covers several different ones. So Emily, what is one reason an artist should consider their audience?
The reason that I put down from the book was that you should consider what kind of audience wants to buy it, and then how much the audience has available to pay for it.
Yeah, excellent. That is a foundationally practical perspective to have. If you are doing an exhibit at school, there's every once in a while somebody does buy stuff, but most of the time, people, the most often, I'm sorry, the highest amount of foot traffic through the galleries on campus, like right across from the office, and then on the 4th floor, is student traffic. That's almost everybody that comes through, and it's very rare the students are going to buy stuff. So if you want to actually sell something, you're going to have a better shot going out over to the Woodbury and displaying there, or at a private gallery. And there, you know, the first Friday art walks, there's galleries all in Provo, several different ones. And then again, if you want to sell there, take into account the kind of people that frequent the stores that the galleries are in. You know, you're going to have a difficult time selling a $3,200 painting if you go to the one of the boutiques that sell thrift items. You're going to have a better shot selling small items, perhaps, or less expensive items, because that's what the market will bear. So yeah, excellent. What are a couple other reasons why you need to consider your audience? If your exhibit is a photography exhibit where you are taking photo portraits of inmates and showing off their tattoos, is that going to be received more easily at BYU in the art building or at UVU in the art building?
UVU most likely, but BYU might be a culture shock for them, so it might bring more attention to those photos.
Yeah, and just keeping in mind that now the reason I brought that example up is great answer, Samantha. Is that about 15 years ago there was a BYU photography student that did their BFA show with Utah inmate prison tattoos. She did portraits, and she started looking at, you know, a lot of families go through the fine arts building on campus, and she was a little bit concerned about that. So instead, she went to the Harold Beadley Library and talked to them about where she could show it. They got super excited because there are a lot of people that will do kids' activities in the art building. And even though it is an art building, there are families that go out of their way to get as offended as humanly possible sometimes. And so going to the Harold Beadley Library, they were actually able to get her show shown in the special collections gallery downstairs, the special collections library. And it was, I'm sorry, I was having a brain fart. The Harold Beadley Special Collections Library hosted her tattoo exhibit. So it's incredibly cool. So not only was she considering her audience, but she was considering where would the best fit be for the right kind of audience. So yeah, can anybody think of a third reason why it's important to consider your audience?
I think that sometimes like 3D art or photography can get overlooked, especially if it's the same picture that 50 other people have taken a picture of. So you have to be unique in a way that captures your audience and involves them in it.
Oh, I think that's an excellent perspective. Being aware of your audience can really give you the insight on how to do that too. So yeah, excellent. Because if you know you're going to be doing an exhibit across the hall from the art department offices, you know that your audience is going to be students. So you're going to be you want to do something that is specifically different than the assignments that they already did. Yeah, that's an excellent point. Very nice. Great. Fine arts and applied arts. I think everybody nailed this who read about that in the book. The extremes of material choice, it's interesting because sometimes people completely miss this and sometimes they get it right on the head. It just depends on the semester. This semester, everybody who's read about this in the book nailed this question. So excellent. What is the difference, the two extremes of material choice that the textbook talks about? When people get, I'm sorry?
It's crafting the material to resemble something else or presenting the material in such a way that its own nature is emphasized.
Yes, excellent. Very good. Yeah, like a good example of this might be the Pieta, carved out of marble, looks so much like human flesh and fabric, it's scary. And then you look at somebody who really knows how to make beautiful tables with the highest quality wood, and it really shows off the wood. So yeah, excellent. And this is right out of the textbook too. What's fascinating to me is he moved the camera only slightly on these two. They're almost the exact same image. Difference being the one on the right, where he looks kind of surprised, is lit the way that the Congress had wanted to light it, not the way the sculptor wanted to light it. This is the way the sculptor wanted to show it. And it's fascinating to me how very emotionally different these two are. And then this, everybody who's answered this has gotten this right, so that's very good. And in the book, it goes over about a course of about 4 or 5 pages. It talks very specifically about 9 ways of involving the viewer. And all you have to do is list and explain 5. For the people that didn't get the points on this, they either didn't have access to the book, so as soon as they get the book, they can redo it, or they just listed them and didn't describe why briefly. They didn't include a brief description of why they found it intriguing. So if you're missing points on that, just look as to why I said you're missing points, and then you can go back and fix it. Is anybody here tonight? Any of the people that resubmitted stuff and got the regraded? Is that true of any of you guys?
I actually just did, but the one that I got wrong, I know I just got right because I just answered it right. So
Okay, good. Excellent. All right, I'll take care of that then after this class if I haven't already graded it. I do try to go through and grade every day at least once. That isn't always possible. Like when I'm traveling around and driving around. Last week I had to drive up. I do with my stained glass stuff and my pluralist chaplaincy. Sometimes I will go up and do, like when the church has a walkthrough with interfaith folks. They'll sometimes have me go in there and help people feel less uncomfortable. And sometimes I'm just driving. Like today, I had to go to Las Vegas to get some stained glass. But other than that, I try to grade every day. Now, I do want to go over this and talk about some of this. We do have examples here. And I don't know if this is going to be edited out. If we look at a website, if it is edited out, I'll include the website in the attendance thing anyway. So if it is edited out of our YouTube video and you're watching the recording of this, just make sure that you go and visit that website and check it out and see what you think. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again. Now, this assignment that hopefully people are working on, we talked about using that Polyhedra website and just making paper models, and a couple of you made just gigantic ones. This is not a continuation of that necessarily. This is an example where you are making cardboard houses, basically out of file folders, cardboard, and then decorating them, adding texture to them, making them fun to photograph. And some examples of that, of these little kind of houses and how much fun they can be. There's a guy named Charles Young, and I want to share his website with you. Just seeing some of the things that he does, some of these little houses that he makes. And he makes things that are about a quarter the size of what I want you guys to make. But Charles Young also, he also will use other textures. Like this is caning from chairs that he actually uses and puts into his houses. What I want you mostly to look at these things here, the primary reason I want you to look at this stuff is to give you ideas for the foundational design of the structures you're making. And you don't have to include animation, but some of these, he really seems to be very enamored of the Bauhaus and early mid-century modern construction. He really loves that kind of a look, and I think that that's kind of fun. And you can see there's just all sorts of different kinds of designs that he's done, and you can make a lot of different kinds of buildings. Now, again, the scale on this thing is probably only about 3 inches high, and or maybe even a little bit smaller. For you, I want you to make stuff that is the size of 2 fists together, about like that. I talk about that a bit in the assignment description. And it doesn't really have to fit any specific model, other than I want it to be something that resembles a house that you've decorated, made it look cool, made it fun for you to photograph yourself, and that it's sturdy enough that you can take it anywhere to photograph it. And I want to share, this is I have a couple 1 or 2 minute videos that I want you guys to look at if you need to, that kind of shows you different design ideas. And this is where YouTube might ding us. So if I have to take it off, this is about 6 minutes long, but if I have to take it off, make sure that you watch these videos, and they are in the assignment. And this person just shows how they made this house out of cardboard. You can do the same thing with tagboard. You can scale it up or down, but again, the size should be at least the size of a softball. And this person just goes through the different process that they used to build the house. And this is an important thing, where the sides at opposite ends were the same, and they used one as the pattern for the other. Putting it together. And I like the attention to detail that they put into this thing. And after they're all done making it, one thing I like about this, I don't know if you noticed, but they put transparency plastic in for the windows even on this. I'm sure it's a lot more entertaining with the sound, but we don't have to watch it with the sound. But you can see they've done a lot of different kinds of things to make this not just interesting to look at, but fun to photograph too. You know, with all these lines in that front porch fence, with the transparency of the windows, you can imagine how that would look like with the light coming through, or even maybe potentially putting a camera inside of it, taking a photo through the window going out. I've seen people take this, and this one doesn't have it, but going to like Hobby Lobby, for example, and getting some of the fake plants and putting that on the porch, from their, they have a dollhouse section at Hobby Lobby, and they have a train section at Hobby Lobby. This, I think, is a little bit more enjoyable because it has more going on. That other one is just the cardboard itself. And this artist has done stuff with different materials, with different colors, and made it a lot more enjoyable, I think, to look at just by itself. But as you do this, there's lots of different things that you can do. Like, for example, you can apply siding by cutting parallel strips of colored paper and gluing them on, starting at the bottom and then slightly overlapping them. You can do things where you maybe spray paint it a bit and then go back over with slightly different color paint and a sponge and give it texture that way, or even spraying paint on with a toothbrush, and you spatter it with the toothbrush. And I like this individual. They've done a lot. They've spent a lot of attention to detail as well, doing different things. And I love seeing the different colors of materials used for different portions of the house, as well as things like siding details. This looks like a very mid-century modern type of house. And you can see there's attention to detail with the texture on the roof. And I love when they were photographing it outside, they set it up in different ways so that the sunlight did different things to it. One of the coolest, and I think I mentioned this last week, one of the coolest houses that I remember is that one of the artists, her grandpa had built a house out in the middle of nowhere in Nowheresville, Utah. And it was well enough built that her family would go to it over holidays and stuff. And she had a lot of really nice memories to it. What she did was she made it so that she put cotton that she kind of fluffed out the chimney. And then she could put a light inside the house so that it lit up the cotton. So when she took a picture of this house, you could see the lights on inside. She did it at nighttime. So you can see the lights on inside, and then also the glow of a fire, perhaps. But on the roof, she actually textured the aluminum foil that she used so that it looked like a tin roof, with the lines in it and everything. Did textural painting on it so that it looked aged. It just really did a good job. And then this next video I want to show you in just a second. This one is another really simple house. And what I like about it is that it shows just a very simple construction that would be very easy to add a lot of detail to. Like, for example, you could do siding on this. Notice the windows are clear. You could do different things in the windows. Maybe one person took the transparency plastic and used markers and made a stained glass window on the transparency plastic and put that in one of the windows. And you could add texture and color and different things to the roof, to the sides, all sorts of different stuff. One person did things where they did detail so it looked like stone was on the corners, and then they painted it and added dark or painted black cardboard elements so it looked like one of those German gingerbread style houses, the Wattle and Daub style house. But this person gives you the measurements and everything like that. You don't have to follow their measurements. You can use that as a plan, but you can see how they put this together. Adding textural elements to the outside is kind of fun to do. I've even seen people put their pets inside them. Like one person put a house and they had a pet hedgehog that they put inside the house. And that was an awful lot of fun to see. And if if the YouTube algorithm doesn't allow us to show any of those videos in the recording of this session, I will include those links underneath as well in the attendance section. So are you guys feeling what I'm dishing out here? Are you smelling what I'm stepping in? Okay, excellent. Now, I really love these two houses quite a bit because the people that made them, the artists that made them, painted a lot of texture. They added a lot of things to it, just making it fun to look at. And they took some thought into taking the photos so that it was a little bit ironic or humorous or things like that, some of the photos. And it was an awful lot of fun to see. I really loved this kind of creepy, middle of nowhere kind of house that's been boarded up kind of vibe. And I love that, but it's also just a lot of fun to look at. And so be thinking about those kinds of things. You know, how can you make this so that it's fun to look at, fun to photograph? And then again, consider the different ways that something can be photographed, the different ways to impact an image that you're recording. Focal point is really good. And there's lots of apps on your phone or that you can, or a lot of features on your phone that you can use to kind of drill in or drill down on different aspects of this if you want to, working with focal point and depth of field. And sometimes the viewpoint is really fun to play with. Like I said, maybe you want to put your phone inside the house and take a photo that way, or take it from the perspective. Some of the really good ones that I've seen is they'll put the house in a spot around a regular home and come up really close on the house so that it looks almost life size until you realize the setting is it's on somebody else's mailbox. And then another, maybe they'll also put it on the side in their house they built on a sidewalk, step out into the street so that you see a portrait of the full-size home behind it. And then you realize that little teeny block on the sidewalk is the house that they made. So playing with viewpoint is really fun. And you can also edit them. If you want to put it through Photoshop or something and make the image that you created, give it a lot of grain and maybe make it sepia toned so that it looks like something that was photographed in the 19th century. You know, you can do that on one of them. And there's different kinds of things to do. And then when you submit this, what you're going to be doing, and this is what your work log will look like. And I just am reminding you about the work log, how to do that. You do not need to submit the work log as part of this assignment. You submit the work log with the work log assignment in that submission thing in the module. But this just reminds you, this is how you fill out the work log. And then when some things to remember: do not submit HEIC files, and do not submit. There is another file type called web image or web photo that doesn't come through either. So it needs to be submitted as in a PDF document or as a JPEG is the simplest. If I can't open the file, if sometimes when you submit it from your phone, it tells me I need permission to get it, open it, or just won't allow me to open it. If that's the case, I'll write down what the problem is and put a 0 there, turn around, submit it in the correct file format, and we're good to go. And then after this, and the only reason not to get the full 25 points is if you didn't follow parameters. If your photos, if you don't have 5 different photos that are 5 separate views. Again, we talked last week, you don't stand and take 5 photos as you're walking around your house. It needs to be 5 different setups, 5 different images. And then, and they all need to look good. You know, you need to be happy with them. Then for full points on the discussion portion, I'm sorry, I'm trying to get to that now. What you need to do is upload your 5 photos. Then that gives you half of your points. And then you need to comment with a feedback of at least 45 words on each of 3 of your fellow students' works. Reference the tools of artistic critique specifically and how to do that. I want to ask from from 4 different people. So each of you will supply one different one. What are the 4 tools of artistic critique? What is the first tool? It starts with a D.
Description.
Description. Excellent. And what does that encompass when you are describing the object?
That's going to be just the exactly what you see, just the visual parts.
Yeah, excellent. Just the physical parameters of the object. Very good. So basically straight up, very practical. What's the second one? It starts with an A. Somebody who, thank you, Nicole. It's somebody who's not Nicole.
Analysis.
All right, excellent. And what do you do when you give the analysis?
You're trying to figure out what the artist did to achieve their technique.
Yes, perfect. Excellent. So in this case, what Nicole said, thank you, Samantha. What Nicole said is you're basically just telling it like it is. And what Samantha's saying with the analysis, you're starting to use a bit of your imagination. You're extrapolating a little bit about what you see. Okay, what's the third one? It starts with an I. Somebody who's not Nicole or Samantha. Okay, Emily.
Interpretation is the third
Excellent.
one. And it's the meaning of the piece, or yeah, what the other elements combine to mean.
Excellent. Is this one that you can get right or wrong?
I would guess not, since everyone brings their own interpretation to a piece.
Yeah, you're not required to interview the artist. What you are required to do is assume that the artist has done it exactly the way they wanted to. And you're using your imagination, a little bit more of it, to extrapolate from what you see and how you think they put it together, what it possibly could mean. And you can tell a lot about potentially what a person's worldview is from how their art looks. And there are some things that you can tell right away that I think are pretty valid assumptions about what the art might mean, like by the color use, whether it looks really clean and finished or whether it looks kind of rough and spiky. There are going to be different cues that you get. So yeah, excellent. Thank you, Emily. What's the fourth one? It starts with an E, somebody who's not Samantha, Nicole, or Emily. It also starts with a J. You guys need some help? Dow or Andy? The finals.
I don't know.
Yes. What's that, Dow?
I don't know.
Oh, okay. The final one, I want everybody to read the Tools of Artistic Critique. I think you guys have done pretty good. Emily, you're whispering to help him out. Excellent. Okay. Yes, the fourth one is judgment or evaluation. And so the first one, description, you're not using any of your imagination. You're just telling it like it is. Second one, analysis, you're starting to extrapolate a bit how the artist did what they did. The third one, interpretation, that's when you're almost starting to imagine an avatar of the artist that you can have a conversation with. And then the fourth one is all you. It's whether or not it succeeds. You're evaluating or judging. Yeah. Is it successful? Does it communicate something specific? Is it well put together? Or if it's designed not to be well put together, does it do that well? Does it have value, either by what it represents or in and of itself? All those are really important things. And the reason why that's all you is, again, you're not communicating directly with the artist. You're not asking them for their opinion. You're determining it. And the reason why how this becomes valid is you are using your big person words to articulate the reasons why you think this thing is valuable, then why you think that this thing is successful. Now, that kind of evaluation is going to look different if you're looking at something that is in a museum as opposed to something that you or a classmate did in this class, because what will be successful in this class may not necessarily be successful in a museum. The reason being, what's successful in this class is that you follow the parameters of the assignment and you make it well. Sometimes what succeeds in a museum does not need to follow the parameters of an assignment. But that's pretty much what the difference is. So after that exercise and putting everybody uncomfortably on the spot, and you're welcome, by the way, going back to this assignment for the discussion, what you're going to be doing, you're uploading the 5 images that you turned in, but in the discussion, you're doing it so everybody can see it. Then you're going to circle back a couple days later, look what other people have turned in, and you're going to pick 3 of your fellow students. Look at their photos, and then you're going to write a response for each of those 3 fellow students. That's at least 45 words. And in those 45 words, this is the format that you will write down. 15 words on how it involves the viewer. 15 words on how did it capture, how did they do, how well did they do capturing different responses. Oh, I really loved how they did this with the close-up with the chickens, or I loved how they did this one very close up to the door, so it looked imposing, even though we knew it was a tiny structure. And then 15 words, C, how well did they vary the focal point, depth of field, and viewpoint on the pieces that they submitted. This is just where you're talking about how different are each of the images from each other. And again, you'll do that for each of 3 different students. Now I'm saying you're referencing the tools of artistic critique. I think the most important aspect of that is at the bottom of that, there will be different vocabulary words. Start now to think of different words that you can use to be specific in your descriptions and your articulations. There's a couple reasons why specificity in word use is important. Heidegger, he's a philosopher that I will refer to several times. He's one of my favorite phenomenologists. He's probably the kindest and gentlest of the Nazi philosophers. But one of the things that he said was, when we choose to use a word, a specific word, we also choose to not use all the other thousands of possibilities. So in the effort of being precise, we are blocking out other words that we potentially could have used instead. And that, I love that kind of perspective, because it puts a bit of weight of responsibility on our process of description or our process of communication. Because when we use a word, we need to be able to, or we need to be mindful that we're using it intentionally. And that, again, when we talk about critical thinking or artistic critique, that word critique or critical applies to intention. A synonym for critical is intention. It is not hurtful, which is what most of us have been trained to think for a long time. So we need to be precise in our language and our communication. What's interesting to me is how that impacts our thinking process as well. And there's another video I want to share with you that is in the Tools of Artistic Critique page that I think is a really valuable video. So I'm going to watch this video and with you. It's 6.5 minutes long. And again, if YouTube blocks it, so we can't watch it with in the recording of this class, I will include it in the attendance thing, and I want you to watch that video as well. But we talked about the 4 tools of artistic critique are description, analysis, interpretation, and then, I'm sorry, I couldn't see my fingers, they were disappearing. And the last one is evaluation. I want you, as we watch the 6.5 minute video, or as you watch it on your own if you're watching this as a recording, be mindful of these two individuals talking about this artwork and how their thinking process is changing and how they are applying these 4 tools. Okay, and then we'll talk about that a little bit again. Oh, it's not playing. That's kind of weird. Maybe just a second here. I refresh the page. Okay, this is odd. Can all of you guys hear me okay?
It's a
kinda
little bit
crackling.
fuzzy for me.
Nicole,
Yeah,
can
it's
you
kinda
hear me?
crackling.
Maybe? Okay, this is really weird. I wonder, because I'm not hearing anybody. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and try to share this video again and see if it's working. I don't know why stuff is acting up. Okay, I don't know why the sound is suddenly not working at all. Okay. I'm not hearing anything on that video. Are you guys?
I am not, no.
Okay. I wonder what's going on. Okay, trying again. Usually when something like this happens, the internet is going out, but it looks like the internet is working fine. I just don't understand why I can't get the volume to work. My suspicion is that let's see, my suspicion is that there's something going on with my computer system or its user interface error, which is my fault. All right, let's see. Okay. This is really odd. Okay, it's playing, but it's not, the sound is not coming through, and I don't understand why that is the case. Or at least I can't hear the sound. So I'm going to go ahead and I will put that in, that video, into the attendance to watch, and I'll try to figure out what's going on so that we can watch it next week together. What is fascinating to me about that, can you guys still hear me? Okay. All right. What is fascinating to me about that exercise, these people watching and describing the artwork, is that their thoughts about it change as they talk about it. Has that ever have been an experience that you've had where you look at something and the longer you look at it, your appreciation for it expands or your perspective on it completely changes, for good or bad? All right, you guys have noticed that? An example from my own stuff, Picasso looking at his stuff made me sick to my stomach. And same with, and a lot of the Cubists, like Duchamp, maybe his stuff just gave me motion sickness. I didn't like it at all. And what was interesting is, as I looked at it and tried to learn about it, by just finding the context, how, where the time period that it was made in, maybe what the artists were trying to do, going through those steps where I was trying to find out how they made it, maybe what they intended, all those kinds of things. After a while, it got to a point where I could appreciate the time they put into it. Then I could appreciate what they were thinking about doing it. Then I could appreciate the visual expression of the thought process. And after a while, I completely changed perspective, and now I kind of enjoy this stuff. I have a kind of a question. I'm shifting tracks just a little bit, but it'll make sense in just a second. Do you guys know how old the word blue is in Western literature? Anybody want to guess? Yeah, the word blue. And I'm talking about Greek and Roman times, stuff like that. The oldest, that when it starts showing up in literature, is about 400 BC. Now we know our ancestors used blue before that. They were very aware of it. Like lapis was used both as a pigment and decorative mosaic material in Babylon, and the Mesopotamian area anciently. Blue shows up in 2 paintings in Egypt, thousands of years old. Etruscans in the Mediterranean used blue paint a lot on their houses and their decorative objects, maybe 2,800 years ago. But the word itself doesn't show up, even though there's lots of Greek literature where it describes things that we know are blue. Blue, the word itself doesn't show up until centuries after the Greeks started describing things that are blue. When they would describe the sky, early Greek literature talks about the sky being bright. And later it starts being described as blue. The sea in Homeric hymns is described as wine dark or the color of wine, which is interesting to me because I don't know of a lot of blue wines, but you know, I'm not a wine connoisseur. And it doesn't show up as being a descriptive color until centuries later. But then, not only does it show up blue as a color, but relatively quickly, there's a lot of different kinds of blue that start showing up in language, in literature. Until now, there's dozens, if not hundreds, of different words for blue in each of the different languages that we kind of refer to in Western literature. Isn't that interesting? And anybody want to guess how many different gradations of blue we're aware of now?
Sorry, I can't hear. I can't hear. It's Persis. You
Oh, you
asked
can't
me
hear it all?
the word blue. You asked me about blue. Do you hear me?
I'm sorry, can anybody hear me at all? Is the sound completely gone?
No, I can hear you, but it's very crackly.
Yeah, same for me. I can hear you.
Yeah, difficult to hear you talk. Okay.
That is so frustrating. Well, I am sorry if you guys can't hear me. I don't know how much of the transcript won't even be published. So, oh, that's frustrating. Okay. The point to the whole thing is right now, there's hundreds, if not thousands, of different ways of talking about blue. And the big difference, I think, is because of a consciousness shift that's a direct consequence of expanding vocabulary. And I think that that's true of a lot of our language. But I'm going to see what I can do about solving the audio problem for next time. I don't know why that all of a sudden just stopped working. And I apologize to everybody who's watching the recording of this because the transcript won't come through, and I'm sorry about that. But I think on that really sour note, we're going to line things up, and hopefully I'll get it fixed by next week. Again, I am so sorry. I don't know why it stopped recording. Because all of my audio settings are working. So that is just really frustrating. Okay, folks. We are going to go ahead and wind things up. And I will look forward to talking to you guys all next week. I'm sorry we've lost the sound. Sigh. But I hope you guys have a good week and weekend. And I look forward to visiting with you all. Wonder why, and I lost the transcription too. That's awesome. Okay. I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend, and I look forward to visiting with you all next Wednesday. All right? Okay. We'll see you guys later.
Thank
Have a good
you. Bye.